Hello and welcome to this special bonus episode of The Dairy Edge. Teagasc are running a weekly Let's Talk Dairy webinar series which is also being made available as a podcast. On this week's webinar, advisor Richie O'Brien, along with Regional Manager Siobhan Kavanagh, facilitate a discussion and Q&A with dairy farmer Shane Fitzgerald, researcher Brendan Horan and Glanbia's Shane McElroy about sustainable dairy farming and how this is achieved in practice on the Fitzgerald family farm.
Hello and welcome to the Fitzgerald family farm here in Portlaw in County Waterford. Teagasc, Glanbia and the European Milk Forum are bringing you a live webinar from the farm today. And the main focus of this webinar is how the Fitzgerald family farm are reducing their carbon footprint.
I'm here on behalf of the European Milk Forum to talk about an EU-funded project on dairy sustainability where 6 countries are working together to communicate what's being done to make dairy sustainable in the longer term. Grass is the key differentiator here in Ireland. The rain falls, the grass grows, and it is the key component of the cow's diet. Particularly on this farm, you're going to see evidence of biodiversity, grass growth, soil management, fertiliser management, which provides a unique, high-quality product on behalf of Irish dairy.
The Fitzgerald farm here in Portlaw, County Waterford are part of the joint programme between Glanbia and Teagasc. Our open source Future Farm programme is designed to disseminate information to our wider supply base. We believe in Glanbia that the best way for farmers to learn is to learn from other farmers. The importance of sustainability to Glanbia is that we improve the social sustainability, economic sustainability and environmental sustainability of all our farms in the Glanbia area.
Hi, my name is Shane Fitzgerald. Welcome to our family farm in Portlaw, County Waterford. I'm the 3rd generation farming this land. We're milking 210 cows on 90 hectares. The main focus of today is to show how we are reducing our carbon footprint, but also maintaining high performance and high profitability in our herd.
Good morning everybody and welcome to the Fitzgerald farm here in Portlaw in County Waterford. We have an action-packed programme here today and we have a great panel of speakers. And firstly I just want to thank Teagasc, Glanbia and NDC in conjunction with the European Milk Forum for organising today with us. Today really is about Shane Fitzgerald's farm. Shane is part of the Future Farm programme with Teagasc and Glanbia. It's about how Shane is reducing his carbon footprint for the farm. As I said, we have a great panel of speakers and I'm just going to introduce the panel here. First of all, Shane Fitzgerald and the Fitzgerald family. I'd like to thank them for taking us on. So Shane, thanks for joining us today. We have Brendan Horan from Moore Park, Research Officer in Moore Park. Thanks for joining us, Brendan. And Shane McElroy from Glanbia Ireland. So we have different sections and we'll explain that as we go down through the day this morning. So first to you, Shane. You're a late starter to farming. Yeah. You got a lot from the earlier video, but maybe just go through how you got into this farming crack.
I was, Richie. I suppose I took the scenic route, I suppose you could say. When I finished school in 2009, I suppose things weren't looking great, and I suppose the dairy front, milk price was low. It was a bad year weather-wise, so as my mother advised me at the time, she said go for a backup, a plan B, just in case things didn't work out. So that's when I decided to go to WIT, and I done a 4-year course there in business studies, and I streamed into accountancy. And I suppose as part of that then I got to do some travelling, so I got to go to Canada in 2012 for 6 months on a scholarship programme, and then I got to go on a J1 to Montauk in America. So that was just out for the session and the few pints, nothing to do with farming whatsoever, but sure. That's
important.
Yeah, no, it is part of it. I always advise young farmers to do that, just to get away from the farm. No matter what you're doing, just to broaden your horizons, to become more independent. And it was the right thing I grew as a person through that. And then I suppose I went back to Kildalton after that then, and I done the level 6 dairy herd management. So I got to go to New Zealand as part of that. So I learned all that side of things, all about grass measuring, all about the business side of things. Again, it was a chance to travel, to get away. I suppose my father was probably worried at times, would I ever come back? Maybe I was after doing so much travelling, but I enjoyed it, and I came back more focused and motivated. I was 26 and I came back to the farm full time then. Even though I was always working there when I was younger, like, you know. I was always living at home. I was always doing weekends and evenings, but I suppose look, it was the right time. He was 62 at the time. He was ready to kind of take a step back, and the transition was better as a result. So, like, yeah, no, it was the best thing I done. Like, and now, like, I have the education behind me, and that's after standing to me now as well.
And you're farming in partnership with your father?
Yeah, the two of us are here full time, so, and I suppose we'd have help as well from students in the springtime. My girlfriend Kate helps out as well. She loves milking. All the family help out.
Your
my
trainer
sister,
in?
Yeah, no, she loves the cows, and sister helps out at silage time and crossing the cows on the road. The whole family's involved, so it's lovely.
And nowadays, how do you keep yourself informed? You're involved in a lot of discussion groups and other organisations. How do you? Yeah,
sure. I'm the chairman of my own discussion group. I'm the chairman of my local mackerel club, Kilmac. I'm the chair of the Ag Affairs. So look, I'm involved as much as I can with anything. I'm always like I'm trying to be an ambassador and a leader in what I do, like, because I'm passionate about that. So I suppose my role as Ag Affairs, I'm always trying to get, I suppose, our voice is heard for young farmers, like, you know, on the ground. So like recently we've been lobbying TDs and politicians on all matters for young farmers, whether it's tax reliefs, anything in relation to environmental schemes, because we're the young farmers. We're the ones who are going to adapt to change, and we're the ones who are going to we're going to be the future, obviously. So it's important that we have our voices heard.
Okay, thanks for that, Shane. And we have two Shanes here today, so we'll get a bit confused. So Shane McElroy. Shane, we've worked together, Teagasc and Glanbia, in loads of programmes. In the last 25 years, we've had joint programmes. This programme is slightly different than the previous programmes, maybe.
Absolutely, and it's different, Richie, and yet it's the same. It's working on the adoption of best practice and you know, a testament to the programme is people like Shane joining the programme. You know, multi-generational family farms, real expertise here on the farm, and we'll go through it over the next hour, how much is happening here on the farm. But it's all about farm efficiency, reducing the carbon footprint, pushing on the sustainability of the farms, and profitability linked to that as well. And we'll go through the different areas and how that all blends in together. So I suppose, as well as covering the basics in this programme, so you have the basics of the soil, the grass and the breeding management, with the focus on sustainability as well, with biodiversity and reducing the carbon footprint, which is, you know, from a regulatory point of view, from a customer point of view, from a profitability and efficiency on the farm point of view, absolutely key. So the farmers, the 11 farmers, this is a 5-year programme, and the 11 farmers over that duration are taking part in many programmes and initiatives. So they're recording grass, obviously through pasture base, taking part in a number of initiatives that Glanbia have available as well. So Great Grass, the herd disease screening programme, the milk culturing programme. You know, there's the ASSET programme as well, which we'll mention later on, and then FarmGen as well. And Shane, right above us here, we've got the solar panels on the roof of the shed where Shane has installed the FarmGen. So again, just to thank Shane for hosting us here today on the farm and for being part of the programme, and to all the 11 monitor farmers as well, and the real value that brings into the wider Glanbia farmer population as well.
I think the opening point, Shane, that you mentioned there, it starts with the basics. Absolutely. We need to get the basics right.
Absolutely. Without having the soil right to grow the grass, the cow right to take that grass and produce as efficiently as possible the best quality milk, you know, all the grass-based piece, the family farm piece, the low carbon footprint, it all really resonates with our customers in the marketplace. And we are totally unique, and we'll talk about it lots today, but you know, we're really unique in world production of dairy. So we need to play to our strengths.
And that's what we show from
Absolutely.
Shane's farm here today,
Absolutely.
Shane Fitzgerald's farm here today. Brendan, you know, why is dairy sustainability so important to Irish farmers and to the consumer, the marketplace?
Yeah, so we're food producers. Whether you're a farmer working in research or any part of the supply chain, we're producing food, but we're about meeting customer expectations. And it's clear what customers want now, Richie. They want high quality, low emissions foods. Okay, that's the key requirement now. And I suppose what Shane's doing on this farm, grassland, 100% grassland farm, he's effortlessly meeting those expectations in terms of, you know, whether it's animal performance, animal welfare, animals out grazing, sequestering carbon, building biodiversity. Those things are easily achieved on a grassland farm, and I suppose it's producing those high quality products that are now really desired in the marketplace. So that's why and I suppose the big challenge for us is to explain to our customers all the attributes of these systems and how they produce the quality of product that they require.
Okay, lads, that's just a brief introduction to it, and we're going to we have 4 different sections. We have grass, we have biodiversity, then we're going to talk about the cow's influence on carbon, and then we're going to talk about water quality. So just to introduce the first section here on grass, a couple of days ago we created a video here where Shane brought us through his grassland management on the farm.
We're doing several things on the farm to reduce nitrogen usage. Firstly, the main foundation is to get good soil fertility on the farm. We're trying to increase our pH, spreading lime every year, and we also have been building our P's and K's over the last number of years. We reseed 10% of the farm every year. We incorporate clover into the mix. We try to cut down our nitrogen usage towards the spring and the autumn time by using low emission slurry spreading on half the farm and protected urea on the other half of the farm. We've grown 11 tonnes of grass up until the middle of August, and we aim to grow over 14 tonnes of grass for this year. I'm doing grass measuring here throughout the year, weekly and twice weekly in the high growing season. It allows me to know what the grass requirements are from a nutrient point of view, so we can come up with a fertiliser plan, and we can match that to our grass growth, and we can match our stocking rate to the grass growth. So we're targeting to grow 14 tonnes per hectare this year, so our stocking rate is 2.5 per hectare, which is sustainable and efficient.
Okay, you just after watching that video, and I think you would agree there was an awful amount of information that Shane gave in that 1 minute, and we're going to discuss that through in the next 10 minutes. But there is a questions and answer session that you as the audience can type in questions and answers or a question, and Siobhan Cavan, Regional Manager for County Waterford, will give us those questions. So please interact with us, type in those questions online, and we'll take them in onto the panel here. So first of all, after that grass, I'm going to turn straight away. You know, grass strikes me, Brendan, straight away is, why is it so important? What's so different about grass here and other systems? Why is it that much better?
Sure. So, Shane, a 100% grass-based system. In Europe, only about 30% of the agricultural area is grassland. I suppose that allows Shane to produce product of high quality with low emissions. In terms of producing product on this farm, you're talking about producing product of 1 kilo of milk per or CO2 equivalent per kilo of milk. That's about 60% of the EU average, so it's a really low footprint in EU terms. It's about a third of the global average if you look at the FAO data. And, you know, for some of the customers that buy our product, it might be as much as 7 or 8 times smaller than the footprint in those local industries. So it's hugely different in terms of how we produce product.
Okay, and back to you, Shane. Like you went through an awful lot of stuff in that video, but just one area I want to pick on is, you know, there's a new KPI we're putting out there, nutrient use efficiency or nitrogen use efficiency, and through the joint programme we're trying to reduce nitrogen usage on farms, on the 11 monitor farms, and spread that widely. So maybe explain to us how you are doing that or trying to do that on this farm.
Yeah, like it is something we are very conscious of in the last couple of years, especially, is our nitrogen use. So I suppose fundamental to that is we're trying to get our soil fertility at optimal levels, so our phosphorus and our potassium in the soils, which would be below, I suppose, where we want it at the moment, but it's something we're working on. So like over the last couple of years, that's been built up, and gradually we'll get it to where we want it to be. But I suppose with regards to our nitrogen, the usage would be at 240 kilos per hectare. Before that, it would have been up close to 250 kilos per hectare, and we're gradually trying to reduce that down to below 230 kilos per hectare over the next couple of years. And that will be done by getting our soil fertility right, getting our lime right. Our lime is good on the farm, so once our pH is at optimal levels, around 6.3 for grassland, we can, I suppose, reduce our nitrogen use. We reseed 10% of the farm every year, and we incorporate clover into our reseed mix, and clover takes in nitrogen from the atmosphere organically, so again it reduces our need for chemical nitrogen, and also the trail and shoe, which is low emission slurry spreading, and maybe a lot of people might be aware of what that is, but I suppose traditionally you would have seen a splash light out in fields where you can see all the slurry and the emissions are going off up into the atmosphere. A lot of it's lost, and I suppose it's not good for the farmer because you're obviously losing nutrients, and it's not good for the neighbours either, because it's important to keep them happy as well. There's less fumes after these trail and shoes that go straight into, it goes straight into the soil. So look, it's important, like you're making more better use of your organic nitrogen. That way you're cutting back on your chemical nitrogen, and it's good for the farmer and it's good for the environment.
And Brendan, just on the nutrient use efficiency, maybe explain how that is calculated, Brendan.
Sure. So nutrient use efficiency is basically how much N are you sending out the gate of the amount of N that's used in the system. And Shane at 28% is top 10 percentile in terms of that value. And I suppose people would look at that and say, oh, 28% nutrient deficiency, does that mean we're losing a lot of nutrients from
Yeah,
systems?
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, it doesn't actually. I mean, I suppose what's happening there is nutrients are moving in lots of directions. So it's building organic matter in soils. Some of it is released as N2 gas, which is harmless into the air and so on. And then some of it is lost. And I suppose the key thing is if we can match nutrient inputs to what's going out the gate in nutrient output, I suppose, in protein and milk largely, then we can achieve a good balance and have very low levels of losses. And that's exactly what's happening on this farm,
Okay. And like, Shane, from a Glanbia perspective, you're selling the milk out there. The whole importance from the grass-fed, how important is that from you?
Absolutely, Richie. That's one of the big strengths that the Irish production system has, that it is grass-fed. We're small family farms that are managed, the animals are managed by the owner that needs those animals as for their livelihoods. We've small herds, we have a grass-based production system, we've a low emissions production system. So we've got it all really, and it's just about marketing that. But we need to make sure that we are in that grass space and that low emission space, which is so important from a regulatory point of view and from a customer point of view. So Shane here, just on the grass piece, is absolutely at the top end of it. So in our truly grass-fed claims that we make about the 250 days of grass, Shane's at 290. We've 95% call out. Shane is well north of that with the amount of grass that he's growing and utilising here on the farm, because he's getting the lime right, he's getting the fertiliser right, getting the soil fertility right, and then he's managing it and utilising it right through from the early part of the year. Good opening covers, good closing covers, making sure that there's grass there for that long period, the 290 days, 300 if he can, if the weather permits. So that's really where you'll add the value. The fact that the cows are going out and feeding for themselves means we have to feed less silage, feed less meals, and that's keeping the emissions down all the time. So in terms of supporting our farmers with this, so obviously, Shane here's getting a lot of support from yourself, Richie, and others as well, but in terms of supporting the full Glanbia population of farmers, if you like, we have a number of initiatives there running, but one in particularly is the Great Grass Programme, where we're looking at supporting farmers in terms of reseeding, fertiliser, lime, soil testing, making sure all the basics are right, measuring grass and making sure that the utilisation is there and maximised. So I suppose what all of this does when you roll it all together, and particularly the grass-fed and the animal welfare benefits of that allows us to go to the marketplace with a unique proposition, ticking all the boxes that are really important to consumers, and that modern consumer who's so aware, particularly of the environmental piece and the animal welfare piece, where grass-fed just works.
Okay, and I think there's a question coming in here from the audience, but I'm just going to, Shane, to you first. Like, you're going to get to 290 days. That doesn't happen by accident.
No, I suppose there's two parts to that way I look at it. First is you have to have the grass there in the first place, so is the growth and the utilisation. So the growth is, we obviously measure the grass, you see that through the video, and do a grass budget then for the autumn and for the spring as well. So we'll know exactly how much grass is there, and we can ensure we have the right cover there to get the cows out as early as possible in the spring, and to keep them out as long as we can in November, obviously, weather permitting. And the second part, I said, is the utilisation. So you have the grass there, the other thing is to graze it. There's no good having it out there if you can't get to it. So we would have put in extra roadways throughout the years, and especially this year we focused on that. We have lots of gaps into paddocks, so we've it gives us great flexibility as well, even for water as well. We've just great infrastructure to get the cows out to all the paddocks well into the year, and that's how we can get such up to 290 days a year out of grass.
Okay, great stuff, because that's a big figure, that 290 days. Siobhan, I turn to you on the question.
Yes, Richard, there's plenty of questions coming in, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. The first question is on soil fertility. What's the fertility status of the farm?
Yeah, so I suppose soil fertility, as I said, is something that's been built up over the last few years, and it's a slow process. So most of the indexes for P would be an index 2, and then low index 3 for K. So we're targeting to get them up to high index 3s over the next couple of years. Again, like I said, the P especially is a slow process, so we'd be spreading compounds like 8612. We would have spread 27, 2.5, 5 over the years as well, and probably it's not as good, like it's probably make it a slower process. So I suppose by concentrating on 8612 and concentrating on our low emission slurry spreading, we're getting our P's and K's out and getting more value out of them. So we expect the next couple of years to be up at optimal levels then.
Okay, is there another question, Siobhan, coming through? No, that's okay. So on that, we're just going to leave the grass subject, and we'll come back to that later if there's other questions, or we have questions and answers. If you have other questions, just type them in. And now we're just going to move on to our next section for today. It's about biodiversity and how Shane has left room for nature on his farm.
From the baseline assessment on the farm, there was a biodiversity level of 18% on the farm, which was considered high. We have a lot of features on the farm already, lots of hedgerows, we have water courses which act as corridors for nature. We also have whooper swans that come in during the winter time on a proportion of our land. We have low input pastures, deciduous wood. We also have set some wildflower seeds as well around the yard to encourage bees and pollinators. We have more plans in place as well to increase biodiversity levels on the farm. So as part of our biodiversity management plan, we're going to set a new hedgerow along by the fence here behind me. It'll act as a corridor for lots of animals. It'll be a nesting site for birds. It'll create a new habitat, and it'll also reduce our field size from 7 hectares down to 6.5 hectares.
Okay, we're back live in the studio here and back to Shane. And like you've covered a lot of ground there on that video and the plan. I suppose the important thing here is this has been built into your overall plan for the farm biodiversity, and it's new. Let's call it, like you wouldn't have built this into your plan before. Maybe the main points of that plan, Shane, maybe.
Yeah, I suppose like when I think of biodiversity, I think of the 4 principles of retain, maintain, create and enhance. So look, I suppose we have so much biodiversity levels on the farm already we probably weren't even aware of. So there's been a study done and we'd have levels of 18% on the farm, which would actually be just high even for the future farm group. So look, I suppose we're looking that way, like the levels are high already, but we need to maintain that. Like we need to make sure they stay there.
There's one thing that makes it a lot higher though.
Yeah, I was getting to that point. Yeah, yeah, I suppose I'll go on to that. So the whooper swans, they were the big one. Like they come in every I suppose winter, like could be there for 5 months. One time we would have been probably trying to hunt them away into the neighbours, whereas now we're trying to round them back up and get them back in again.
You love them now. You love them.
Yeah, no, geez, we're trying to get more. But if you know if you've any swans in Kilkenny, you can send them down to us if you want. But there could be 70 or 80 of them there in the winter, like, and they're migratory birds, like they're magnificent birds to see them, like. So look, I suppose it's lovely to have on the farm. It's kind of unique to the farm. We're lucky to have them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I suppose like other aspects then as well as on the farm, we have a low input pasture as well on the farm. It's wet land, like it's land. It's already been drained years and years ago, but it's still wet, like. And if we had to go pumping money into that and trying to drain it again, it's going to cost us more money and for very little return. So just leave that there, very little fertiliser on it, very little pesticides used, just leave some dry cows graze away, and it's good for an environment, like, and it's not going to cost us any money. So the only things I think with biodiversity, it's simple stuff, like, none of this is rocket science, and it's not going to cost a whole heap of money. I suppose like another example, what we done this year was we put in a bee bank, we call it. I suppose the wildflower seeds. So just where we built a new shed, there was a bank along there, and instead of growing weeds, we said we'd put out some seeds, and like they were only set in July and they're starting to come into flower already. Like they look well, like lovely, nice, colourful flowers, and already you can see bees around them. And next year when they come into full life, like they'd be lovely to have the farm, and with them, like we can spread that throughout the farm then as well. And I suppose another thing we're looking at in our plan then is the hedgerows. We'd have like lots of hedgerows already on the farm and around the external boundaries in some parts of the farm. But I suppose one section on our main milking platform, there is a big area of around 50 acres where there is no internal hedgerow. So we're looking at setting a 450 metre hedgerow just for it'll be a shelter for cows, it'll be a corridor for wildlife, it'll be an extra habitat. So native species like a whitethorn, like, and it'll reduce our field size, our average field size from 7 hectares down to 6.5 hectares on the farm. So look, all this it's all little things, but I suppose like we do need to be kind of incentivised, I think, as well to do this. At the moment, like if you set a new hedgerow or set trees, you're not getting paid for it through your basic payment scheme. So look, at the moment, like, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and it's a step in the right direction. But I suppose for every farmer to do it, they are going to need to be incentivised, and hopefully that'll come down. And the policymakers are looking at it in the next CAP. We'd be hoping we'll be incentivised to do those sort of things.
And just even you look at that where you are encouraging pollinators, the bear bank, and then you set the flowers. It didn't cost a lot of money, like wise.
No, like they were called bee bombs. They came, like, it was cost €50 I think for the whole autumn, like, and you just throw them out onto the soil and they grew away. Like for the wildflowers, actually the worse soil the better, okay. Because otherwise if you throw them onto good soil, the grass and the weeds will outcompete them. So there's no work in them at all, really. Like, you know, and just they need a little bit of rain, and they'll take off. But
And this just a bank after building the shed, it was just a bare bank that needed.
yeah, that's all it was. Yeah, it was a bare bank, and as I said, all would be there. Otherwise, would be weeds growing. And on the south-facing bank, then I basically just cleaned all that off, and I made it like a kind of a, I suppose you call it a bee bank again, just for the solitary mining bees. They can burrow into the bank, and they can live in there as well. So little simple things, but no, it all helps.
Okay. And like you can see what's happening on the farm here, and Shane, the importance of that to the wider Glanbia
Absolutely,
producers.
Richie, and it's like the grass fed. There's a demand now for improving biodiversity right across the world, you know, and the government of Ireland has identified a biodiversity emergency here, as we know. So we know that people want to make a difference, but we're actually starting from a really good place. We've got a really good level of biodiversity on our farms, and for the first time with work that's been done through this programme through Teagasc, we have numbers on biodiversity now. So as Shane was saying, he's up at 18%, but the average of the monitor farmers, the future farmers, is 8% or over 8%. So really, really high in comparison to other systems where you know, you just have flat fields and no hedges, no trees, no anything else to keep the birds and the bees happy as well. So we're in a really, really good place, and you know, it's just a matter of building on that now from where we are. So earlier on this year, as most people will know, we had a payment for biodiversity, an unconditional 0.2 cent per litre payment to it. Farmers can boost biodiversity on their farms, but as Shane was saying, you know, it doesn't cost an awful lot of money to make a difference. It's just changing how things are done. So it's the way the hedge is cut, you know, into that A shape rather than the square shape, letting it grow that bit higher, you know, only cutting every 3 years on the rotational system rather than trimming all the hedges back every year, allows the birds to nest. You know, things like the bee bombs, the wildflowers, very simple practices that don't have to cost the earth, but they'll make a big difference in terms of moving the dial for us. We're in a really good place. Let's do more about it. We'll market that. You know, there's real positives in that in the marketplace.
Okay, and I see, Siobhan, there's a question. Before I go to you, Brendan, I'll just take a question, if you don't mind, Siobhan.
Yes, there's a question for Shane on hedgerow management, and I suppose it's an opportune time to be talking about it when we're coming into this season. The question is, what conversation does Shane have with his contractor? Because contractors are hugely influential as to how hedgerows are managed. So what's the conversation he has to make sure it's done the way he wants?
Yeah, look, I suppose like it is to something I'm conscious of. Maybe like most farmers don't cut the hedges anymore, so it's up to contractors to do it, and maybe they haven't the awareness and I suppose the training may be required for it. So it's something I'm kind of personally believe that maybe there should be some sort of training course there for contractors, like that they know the exact way to cut the hedge, and I suppose as well that they can identify different species that are within the hedge, like say a whitethorn, the native species that they can leave to mature. So like when I'm getting the hedge cut on because I'll cut a third of the farm every year, just to allow some of the hedges to mature every second or every third year. So I'd be saying that whatever hedges I cut, is try and leave a dense base, try and cut it in a kind of an A shape, like Shane was saying. You try and leave a bit of height on it as well, because like birds, they're not going to nest low on the ground, because obviously predators, the foxes can get them there. They're not going to nest too high in the hedge, because obviously they've predators from the sky, so they want to be kind of in the middle of it. But you just need to leave it kind of A shape, because you see a lot of hedges maybe, and over the years contractors are, I suppose their mindset is to cut a nice box shape hedge. It looks lovely for the neighbours again, I suppose, and nice and tidy looking, but a box shape hedge is not good for habitat creation. So you want that A shape hedge, and I think it's up to the farmer to say exactly that's the way it should be done, and it's up, I think that contractors should get some kind of training and try and learn what is the best way to do it for nature.
Okay, I think there's another question, Siobhan, that you want to...
Yeah, there's two more questions here. Are you looking into multi-species paddocks to increase biodiversity while displacing fertiliser? So multi-species paddocks.
I might just throw that at you, Brendan, and then I'll get back to Shane. Brendan, you're starting a new trial in Curtains on this, maybe.
Yeah, sure. It's an emerging area in terms of, I suppose, as we want to take more nutrients out of the soils and also replenish those soils better and build carbon in soils. deep rooting plants are going to play a role in that. So, you know, the plantains, the chicories, the clovers as a central plank of that is crucially important. That's already, you know, highly evident on this farm. So I suppose, yeah, it's an emerging area and an area where we probably will be moving more in that direction in the near future, you know.
And has Brendan persuaded you from the day we were down in Curtains to grow some of this stuff?
Well, I actually missed that day, actually. I
You
wasn't
missed
there.
it? You missed it?
If I had been there, I might have said it by now.
Did you have a letter from him?
No, but no, something again, it's something I obviously have on my radar, like, you know, we've been setting clover on the farm for the last, say, 10 years. It's always going in with the mix, like, so we're looking at that. But I suppose there are still questions there regards persistency as well, like, so I'd like to see a little bit more research done at first, but definitely over the next couple of years I would be willing to trial it out, because there's benefits there, obviously from reducing your nitrogen and from a drought scenario with longer roots, so there's definitely a lot of potential there for it.
Okay, and there's questions coming, so I'm going to take them as they're coming. Yes.
Okay, how do you manage the fence by hedges when the hedge is not cut every year? So managing the fence.
Yeah, so well, I suppose we're lucky enough that we can graze it all, like, so the cows, they graze all the grass under the fence is kept out, is, like, say, it's out a metre, and like someone will probably move out to a metre and a half. But look, we don't seem to have any issue with coming out in the fence, and it's out that bit from the ditches, and once it's cut every 3 years, like, you know, there's not going to be a huge amount of growth on it. So yeah, look, I suppose like the days I got now, I was spraying ditches around them and stuff like that. That's not the way to do it, like, so we let the cows do the work on that, like, you know, and cut it every 3 years to keep on top of it.
And back to you, Brendan, because all the research farms, and you're working closely with a couple of research farms, that you're all putting in place different plans and measures.
It's exactly the same process as what Shane's talking about. So it's about knowing what you have, not just thinking about the quantity of that. We know grassland farms have, you know, 10%, and that's a high internationally. It's about then building the quality. So if there's gappy hedges or, you know, fallow areas on the farm, to take advantage of those as ways of boosting biodiversity on farm. And then it's the things like, you know, pulling out that fence, the metre from the ditches and so on. And if there's opportunity to put in new hedgerows, you know, they're fantastic in terms of putting in extra diversity. It's National Tree Day, so, you know, there's places on every farm where we can put in extra kind of, you know, benefits for biodiversity, and we should be taking advantage of that without any loss in productivity, you know, so it's win-win. Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, Siobhan, on that?
Yes, we have another question here regarding biodiversity measure. Is there a percentage goal to exceed? So Shane has done a biodiversity score on this farm. Is there a target level?
Okay, I'd maybe throw it at Brendan first, maybe.
Yeah, so I think probably looking at CAP now, it's the kind of the sense we're getting is that we're going to have 10% on our farms, and most of our farms already there and growing from that. So I suppose if you're at a farm that's had a low level of biodiversity, maybe, you know, sub 10%, building that in now I think is sensible to meet that criteria. It's going to be a bigger part of the farm to fork, and it's going to be a bigger part of the National Climate Plan. So, you know, that 10% upwards, Shane's doing fantastically well to be up at 18%, and I suppose, you know, hopefully the policy will become more supportive of that, and that farmers won't be penalised for having that extra area on their farms. That's really, really important to support the
and I think Shane, you said earlier that the average for the future farms.
Average, yeah, 8.5% from the work done by Aoife Leader there, the Teagasc.
I think it was even higher, could have been, it was between 8 and 18%, so I think it could have been.
Yeah, the range is absolutely to yourself.
That shouldn't surprise any of us though, Richie, because I mean, you know, working UCD at Johnstown Castle, they both show that Irish farms, grassland farms, support much higher levels of biodiversity. If you go to mainland Europe, going to cropping farms, you're talking 2-3% biodiversity area maximum, you know, so this is an easy win from a grassland perspective.
We keep going back to it. It's all simple stuff, like, it's not rocket science. A lot of the stuff, like, you know, if you have kind of unproductive land or it's wet, just leave it to nature. Just leave your native wildflower, your native plant grow. You don't even have to set anything there. And stuff like moving your fence out a bit from the ditch, that's not going to cost money. It'll take a bit of time, but, like, you know, it's all very simple stuff. Like, that's all it is. Like, you know.
The other thing to say is, in terms of like low emissions methods, protected urea, the practices that are now standard on this farm and on the future farms, I mean, those are reducing greatly the ammonia emissions on the farms, and that is beneficial, big benefit in terms of biodiversity. So all those factors are playing in together, you know. So it's.
And just to add to it as well, I mean, all the biodiversity we're talking about here is above the ground. There's so much biodiversity in the soil as well. And with soil health being key for a grassland-based production system, you know, that's why we need to get the soil health right. And we have that in most cases. So putting measures on the below the ground soil biodiversity is a key one for the future as well.
Okay, and I'd say there's going to be a lot of questions on this at the end. So thanks a lot, and we're just going to move on. And basically in the next video, Shane is going to bring us through his herd of cows and how they are navigating the way in reducing carbon footprint.
The type of cow on the farm is predominantly Holstein Friesian, and they're high EBI, and their average weight is in around 590 kilos. They have a maintenance sub-index of 9, so it's a very young herd at the moment. There's 50% are first and second lactations. The EBI of the herd at the moment is 144, and it's 211 for our young stock. We would have used a team of bulls of 15, genomically selected, with an average EBI of 300. The young stock, I suppose, are the most important animals on the farm. They're highest genetic animals. We have them weighed, and on the 1st September they averaged 180 kilos. So anything below 180 kilos are getting 1.5 kilos a meal, just to get them up to target weight, and any calves above 180 kilos are on no meal. We scanned the cows through the milk recording, and there was 6% empty, and there was 83% cows calved in 6 weeks in the spring of 2020. The herd produced 482 kilos of milk solids last year, and it was 460 kilos of milk solids sold off the farm. So I suppose the plan is that we can produce 520 kilos of milk solids over the next couple of years by maturing the herd and improving the genetics in the herd.
Okay, you're all very welcome back after that video, and I think you agree Shane covered a lot there again. And just to remind you, keep the questions coming. Siobhan has a lot of questions there. At the end we'll answer them, so just keep them coming. Okay, there was a lot of breeding on that video, but Shane, maybe just the herd health and the importance of the herd health to the whole area of sustainability.
Absolutely, and you know, as we know, the healthiest herd and the one that's going to have cows that live for a long time, produce a lot of solids over their lifetime with a low replacement rate. That's going to be the lowest emissions type farm, and that's exactly what we have here in Ireland. We have a cow that lives for a long time, produces a lot of milk solids, which is exactly what we're exporting, and then a low replacement rate, so that we're not carrying too many young stock, which of course are not producing an output. So that's really important in terms of you know, ensuring that we don't have blockers to the you know, we've done so much in terms of breeding really good genetics in. We've got the breeding management now up to speed, so we can calve early, get that long lactation, make the use of the grass, and we have the nutrition bang on as well. But to ensure that we don't have blockers, diseases, deficiencies, things like that are the blockers. When it comes to disease control, we've lots of tools in the toolbox. We've the diagnostic services, we've got the medicines available to control and prevent those diseases. So if you take on Shane's farm here, he's been herd disease screening through the Glanbia programme. Very, very simple service. Bulk milk samples taken, it's tested for 7 diseases. You get the results back. Colour-coded system tells you what to do, and you take action and you put the disease in control. One of the things, though, that we need to keep on top of, and we're talking about sustainable systems here, we need medicines to keep, especially in the grass-based system, especially wormers, we need those to work for us. We need those to work for us in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 30 years' time. We need to make sure we look after those and we use them responsibly. What we know at the minute is there's anthelmintic resistance developing, and it's on the rise. So we need to make sure that we don't overuse those, misuse those. And so, you know, Shane on the farm here has found over the last number of years no liver fluke on the farm at all. So Shane doesn't use fluke treatment at the back end of the year because there's no treatment required, there's no disease there, and so that's really important.
And he got that from the report.
Exactly. So I'd encourage people, and we have the vast majority of Glanbia farmers now using the herd disease screening service, getting the reports, look at the report. If the fluke results for the last year are negative, and this coming autumn's result is negative, you don't need to treat for fluke. So don't be using a treatment. That's an irresponsible treatment. We need those to work on other farms that have the fluke, and we need those to work again in future decades. So we're not going to have new products. There's just not going to be any. So really important that people look after those products, look after those medicines that we need in the grass-based system.
And along with that then, like the whole use of antibiotics long term, we're not going to have the same for, especially at dry cow time, we're not going to be able to use that widespread use of antibiotics, Shane. So
yeah, exactly. And there's different ways that antibiotics can be used. Therapeutically, to treat an animal sick, never going to be a problem. Of course, we don't want to be there. We want to prevent diseases, and that's why we have vaccination, and we can tell that from the herd disease screening service. But when it comes to preventative use of antibiotics, using antibiotics to try and stop a disease that's coming in, treating an animal that's healthy, that's not on. That's not responsible, and it's not going to work for the long term. We've got antibiotic resistance now very clearly. It's in hospitals, it's on farms, and the focus is on food production as well to stop that rise of antibiotic resistance. So with new legislation coming in January 2022, less than 2 years away now, going to put an absolute stop to preventative use of antibiotics. No problem to use them for treatments, but you can't use it as a prevention. So what we're doing today, and what we have been doing for decades in Ireland, is we're using dry cow tubes, antibiotic tubes, on every single cow. That's not going to work in the future. Many of our cows that drying off don't have an infection. They've low cell count, they've been low all year, don't have any infection. There's no point, no need whatsoever to throw an antibiotic into them. There's cows that do need it, and absolutely there'll be no problem. But what this new legislation is going to mean is you can't get dry cow tubes for cows that have a low cell count. So to be able to get dry cow tubes at all, you need to have data to show that the cow is infected. How do we do that? Milk recording. Milk recording has been done here on the farm by Shane every month. I'd encourage people to use milk recording at least 4 times a year. We've got about 50 or just over 50% of herds using it at the minute, more than that in terms of animals, but there's so much more value to be got from it as well. But we'll absolutely have to have it when it comes to drying off in the future. So in terms of picking the cows, Shane has been using selective dry cow therapy here for a number of years, very successfully, really good effect. In terms of picking those cows, looking at the milk recording results, any cows that have a high cell count or at any point through the year, they'll get an antibiotic tube, and he picks the antibiotic tubes by using the milk culturing and sensitivity test available from Glanbia as well. Identifies the bacteria that the cow has, and also the antibiotic that's going to work best to clear that infection over the dry period. So the cows that need the antibiotic get it, and then a teat sealer as well. The cows that have the low cell count don't get any antibiotic, just get the teat sealer, and that keeps them right. So I suppose in summary, Richie, in terms of lowering the carbon footprint of the farm and having a sustainable system, it's about having a healthy herd that survives for a long time, low replacement rates, producing as much as possible from the cows we have, and making sure that we look after the treatments that we have, that they'll continue to work for us in the future.
Great. And Shane, you're practicing this, and this is your first year using, last fall, a year ago was your first year using selective dry cow treatment, was it?
No, I've done actually the last 3 years.
3 years, yeah?
Yeah, no, we've started off, right, I suppose everyone starts off gradually, just pick a small number, so we picked everything below 100,000 of a cell count. As even actually the first year, I think it was below 75,000.
Okay, as you were starting off.
As I was starting off, and I suppose doing it every month, you have great records then, so anything was below 75,000, had no clinical case throughout the year, they were chosen. And I suppose we've had a young herd the last few years, so it actually ended up being 30% actually in the first year. So it's been over 30% every year. It's 33% again last year.
Got no antibiotics.
That's just got teats here, only no antibiotics, because I suppose I wanted to be ahead of the curve. I suppose I knew this was coming down the line, and I wanted to get a bit of practice in, I suppose, rather than being forced into it and then end up with big problems. So I suppose I would be encouraging people just to give it a go on a few cows. It might only be 4 or 5 cows. Just try it out and get your hygiene right, because you do have to have everything spot on, because if you're not using antibiotics and you're putting in a teat sealer, if any bit of dirt goes into the teat, it's going to be locked in there, and you're going to get issues. You're going to get E. coli mastitis. You could lose the cow, obviously. So it's important that everything's done surgically. Everyone has to be really take your time, do it right, and it's like I said, it's worked well for us, and each year we're getting better and better at it.
Okay, and I think there's a question coming through on that, and maybe we'll take that question.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a question on milk recording, and it's coming in from TJ. How do we encourage more farmers to milk record?
I'll put that to you, Shane, first maybe.
Yeah,
Shane.
Absolutely. So milk recording, it's a no-brainer. You can't manage what you don't measure. That's the measurement of the cow production. What we want to have is the cows that are most efficient in the herd and breeding from those. What we know today from milk recording results is 15% of cows are actually a drag on the profitability of the farm. They'd be better not on the farm. 15% of herds, cows nationally, are actually not leaving money behind at all. They're costing every farmer. So milk recording allows those cows to be identified. Certainly we don't want to be breeding from them. We really want to get rid of them and breed from the best animals. So absolutely, that's the key benefit to milk recording, as well as the requirement that's going to be there for the purchase of dry cow tubes in the future as well.
Okay, and Shane, do you want to comment any further on milk recording? How do we encourage more people? How are you going to encourage your discussion group?
Yeah, well, I suppose I can say what Shane was talking about. You can see what you don't measure, you can't manage. That's the way I look at it, because at least if you know which cows are are producing well and which ones aren't. Like Shane said again, you can breed off those ones, and the ones that are healthy, it doesn't make sense to give them antibiotics. So you know exactly what each individual cow is doing without making decisions based on the whole batch, which just doesn't make sense, like, you know. So it's
Okay.
it's something I know some farmers do give it up after milk price drops, so it's one thing I would never drop anyways, milk carton. Like, it's so important, and I suppose we're one of the few farmers that would do it every month.
Okay, and the whole area, EBI, listen, is one of the technologies out there that's seen as the big area for reducing carbon footprint. And maybe explain that, how in your farm, how you've used EBI.
Yeah, well, we've been using EBI for a good few years, Richie, I suppose. For the last 10, 12 years, it's just been all focused on EBI. We would have had a high RBI herd previously, and that type of cow, I suppose, was a high yielding type of cow. You couldn't get them back in calf. They used to fill the jars up with water at the time. The milk solids would be low. So that wasn't sustainable. Like, you have a high turnover, higher replacement rate. So I suppose the cow, we're focusing now on a medium-sized cow, a hardy type cow that'll go back in calf, good health, less trouble with others' feed, that kind of sort of thing. So I suppose we want a cow as well as a good feed conversion as well, that'll produce as much milk solids as possible off grass, and that's low maintenance. So at the moment, like, the herd is producing 480 kilos of milk solids, and you'd be hoping to hit 520 kilos of milk solids per cow over the next couple of years. Like, it is a young herd at the moment. Like, we would have expanded over the last 5 years from 120 up to 200 cows, and I suppose like 50% of the herd would be first and second lactation, so there's a lot of room for potential there. So the plan now is we're milking 210 cows and is to consolidate. I suppose you hear a lot of people in the media and the public talking about dairy expansion and you know, cow numbers going up and it's bad for the environment, this and that. Like, so I suppose the focus now on farms and the future farms, and this farm in particular, I suppose, is to consolidate, is to mature the herd. We want an efficient cow, and that's going to lower our carbon footprint.
Okay. And I think on the video you mentioned a bit about the heifers, the importance of the quality heifers and managing those heifers correctly.
Yeah, well, that's the key, obviously, there. I suppose a bit like I mentioned about young farmers earlier, we're the future, we're the next generation, so it's the same for your young stock as well. Like, they have to be obviously as high EBI as possible. Again, we're looking for the best genomic potential there, so we're breeding off our best cows again, and they have to be looked after. And like, we contract rear our heifers as well, and we want them to obviously reach their potential and come to target weights for breeding and when they come into their first lactation. So it's important just to focus on EBI there and ensure that we have an efficient and a productive animal that's going to last in the herd, and we can keep our replacement rate down below 20% rather than carrying lots of young stock and surplus when there's no need. Okay.
And Brendan, coming in that with the EBI and other aspects as regards the cow, what else can we...
Sure. Well, I was just going to add, Richie, that in terms of EBI, I mean, every time you improve EBI, you increase the productivity of individual animals, you will reduce the replacement requirements of the herd because you're getting fewer and fewer empty animals and so on. And that's one of the big benefits in terms of footprint. We talk about footprint and emissions. If you can manage with fewer replacements and a smaller young stock enterprise, that's a massive advantage, one of the main benefits of EBI. I suppose there are other things that you can do as well on farms. It's not just about breeding. Like, if you look at, I suppose, you know, anything you do in terms of grazing management, Shane's really good at grazing management to improve the quality of swards, you lift animal performance. So anything you do that lifts animal performance from the same level of inputs or reduces your requirement for inputs, that improves your profile. There are some really interesting things happening in terms of the other swards and so on. I think they're going to play into that in the future. Crude protein content of diets, the small amount of supplements that we do use in these systems, we know that they're so good in terms of nutritional value mid-season that we can actually reduce crude protein content in our diets, take some more nitrogen out of the system in the feeds we use. And, you know, I suppose the combination of all those factors together, there's lots of scope for further improvement. We believe like that if with the technology we now have coming through, we could get back as low as half the European average in terms of footprint. That's possible with the breeding and the management traits combined. You know, it's super potential.
Okay, well done. I think Declan is looking at me here. He's telling me to move on a bit. So thanks, Declan. Listen, we're going to move on now to a video where Shane talks about the water quality in his farm and again the plans he has put in place to improve the water quality.
This part of the country, we have very free draining soils, so we're conscious of nitrogen leaching, especially in our drier fields on the other side of the road. And we do have gently sloping fields and we have drains on the farm, so we are conscious of reducing our nitrogen losses on the farm, and we try to keep buffer zones as well of 5 metres for slurry and also 2 metres for chemical fertiliser. Down at this end of the farm it's more heavier soil, so we're conscious of phosphorus leaching through sediment loss, so we do try and stay further away from the drains during the first 2 weeks and last 2 weeks of the closing season. So it is important for us to identify the different soil types on the farm, and so our drier soils will be more prone to nitrogen leaching, and our heavier land is more prone to phosphorus loss, so we can manage our fertiliser and slurry then accordingly.
Okay, welcome back, and again keep the questions coming. We've loads of questions coming. Shane, listen, we have a joint programme again. Well, both Teagasc, Glanbia are working on, other processors are working on this whole area of ASSEP. Maybe go through that.
Yeah, just to briefly mention ASSEP, the ASSEP programme. So it's Agricultural Sustainability Support and Advisory Programme. It's a one-on-one service that's available from a specialist trained advisor on water quality management on the farm. And really what it's all about is it's about breaking the loss pathways of nutrients, be it P, be it K, sediment losses, so that we can maximise the nutrients that are on the farm and not lose them off the farm, which of course then can have an impact on water quality. Every farm is different, no different from herd health, from the breeding, from the management on every farm. Every farm is different, and every farm has different solutions to the problems that they have. So what the ASSEP advisor will do is walk the farm with the farmer, identify where the risks are based on the soil type, the profile of the land, what's being spread on the land, and what waterways and so on are through the land. Once they have seen the evidence of what's going on the farm, they can develop a bespoke plan for that farm, and Shane has done that. Well, this programme works in priority areas for action, so there's 90 odd priority areas for action across the whole country. Shane's not actually in one of those priority areas for action, but he took the step to contact his ASSEP advisor to get advice on in terms of his own farm, and maybe Shane will take us through that now.
Yeah, Shane, maybe just comment on that. You have a plan in place, you've put a plan in place to how to improve the water quality here.
Yeah, like Shane mentioned that, I suppose we're not in the catchment area for the ASAP programme, but I suppose I wanted to be proactive about it again, because we have open drains around the farm, and obviously they're getting into a river somewhere, like that water's going somewhere, so we're there along the chain. It's important that we play our part as well. So yeah, I contacted the ASAP advisor. He came out and he gave us good advice and tips, and I suppose the biggest one for me is to manage our soil types. We'd have 2 different types of soil types on the farm. I suppose across the road we'd have more kind of free drain and kind of drier land, and then this side of the road then it's more kind of a wetter. I suppose you wouldn't call it a bog if people in the west are looking at it. They wouldn't call it a bog. No. It's a bit wetter, but that's, I suppose, in that type of soil you have more risk of phosphorus loss and sediment loss, and then with the free draining soils it's more nitrogen is an issue. So we're looking at managing those, especially in the shoulders here, the springtime especially. Like with your slurry and fertiliser, you'd be trying to keep out 5, even 10 metres with slurry. If your fields are a little bit waterlogged, if they're a bit soft, you're trying to stay away from your open drains. And that's important, because obviously we don't want to be any fertiliser whatsoever going to the drains. So just keeping that extra 10 metres is not going to make a whole difference to us. It's only going to be a section of the field. But and I suppose another simple thing around the yard is keeping our yard clean. We have an open drain around the yard. We purchased a road sweeper lately, and that'll just keep the yard clean, and it won't leave any kind of dirt or any kind of dirty water and get into the drain. And I suppose the new thing is with roadways too, as well, is to make sure there's no water getting off the roadways or dirty water getting into our drains, so they're sloping off into the fields as well. Okay, very good. And
Brendan, I'm going to turn to you, kind of a dirty question. I like throwing a dirty question as a tip man. But do you believe, we're talking about a growing dairy industry, and yet we're looking after water quality and the environment in general. Can the two happen together?
I'm really confident that they can. I suppose when you look at the science and the technology, we've been measuring water quality for quite a while, and we can run these systems with very low levels of nutrient losses. There are lots of technologies there. So agriculture is a significant pressure on water quality. We need to acknowledge that and kind of, what do we do about it? In the north and towards the west of the country, it's the less permeable soils and P losses from those. So breaking those pathways, as Shane talked about, using roadways and hedgerows and so on, being very conscious of water movement and sediment loss, that's going to solve a lot of those problems. In the south and to the east, you're going to be dealing with more with nutrient or nitrogen loss in terms of increasing nitrogen concentrations. That's where the big dairy expansion has occurred, I suppose. And in that part, then what you're looking to do is you're trying to reduce the overall nutrient loading. So, more legumes in the sward, better use of protected urea and low emissions methods so that you can reduce the amount of nutrients you require to run the system. That's going to pay big benefits in terms of reducing the nitrogen concentrations in waterways and so on. So, and look, where farmers have engaged in programs such as ASIP to deliver this, we're already seeing the benefits. I mean, ASIP already, there's a 16% improvement in water quality in the last, in such a short period of time. So hugely encouraging. I suppose the reason though I'd be most confident about this, and I suppose with conscious of the wider audience, is like dairy farmers like Shane, they've embraced the challenge. I suppose they've solved a lot of problems that have come up in the last 20 years. 20 years ago we thought we couldn't have highly fertile cows or good milk composition. We were distinctly average in Europe in terms of milk composition. Today this herd, very few empty cows. He's cruising through peak lactation with 3.5% protein. It's unheard of productivity gain. At the same time, he's going to solve these problems by virtue of the new technologies and embracing them fast. And one of the things with research we're always conscious of is that dairy farmers are so rapid at adopting technologies and fixing solutions. So, like, even when we're doing experiments, we're worried that the farmers are actually implementing the technologies quicker than we're actually coming out with the results. So, I suppose it's this guy and guys like him that fill me with the confidence that we're going to meet this challenge head on. Yeah, absolutely.
And the one area we haven't covered a lot today is the use of protected urea. And Shane, I know you've used it widespread this year. Maybe just comment on the research side from a protected urea point of view.
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a good body of research there now done in Johnstown Castle, and in Moore Park we have ongoing studies looking at different sites, looking at protected urea. Basically, I mean, Ireland is can-based fertiliser, has been the tradition here, unlike most other countries. There's lots of emissions associated with those. Moving to the protected urea, basically you can reduce those emissions. We get exactly the same dry matter production. We reduce the cost of nitrogen for the farmer, so it's an economic gain for the farm, and also we have a major savings around the emissions. So it's a real good story, a real big win, and really looking forward, to see much more adoption of that by farmers over the next few years.
You've used it widespread this year. All the future farms are using protected urea.
Yeah, we used it throughout the whole year. Yeah, we used protected urea and found it great. We've grown just as much grass. It's very efficient, it's very safe type of fertiliser. So I'm delighted with it, and I'd be encouraging any farmer to try it out next year just to see how they get on with it. I think my father's delighted with it. It doesn't take him as long to spread the fertiliser now as well. He's delighted with it, and he would have been slow to even adapt.
Is it any of these nice tractors, no?
No, he keeps them in the shed. He only uses them for show.
They're not allowed out. They're not allowed out. Okay, thanks for that, Shane. And we've loads of questions coming through, so we need to get back to those. Siobhan?
Okay, we've a question in from Tim. How does Shane manage runoff from the farmyard to ensure water quality?
Yeah, so what I did kind of mention already is that we keep the yard clean. It's clean water goes into the drain. So by having the road sweeper, even especially around when we're feeding silage in the winter, often you'd see if you're going around to grab a silage, it's going to fall on bits around the yard and muck off the tyres and stuff. So keep the yard clean. It's clean water goes off into the drains. Yeah,
and you've invested a lot of money in the yard, silage pits and putting channels in front of silage pits and slurry storage and housing. Maybe just comment on that.
Yeah, well, that's important as well. To have obviously all the channels for the silage pits and all that. It's it's necessary now. I suppose slurry storage is a big thing. We had to increase our cubicle capacity as well, just to keep up with the number of cows. So slurry storage was another thing we solved at the same time in 2018. So I suppose we don't want to be at risk of having to go out in January, say if the weather was bad in the middle of January, that we have to go out and try and get slurry out on wet ground. So by having sufficient slurry storage above what we need, it allows us a bit of flexibility, so we can maybe hold off till the soil conditions are right for it.
Okay, Siobhan?
Yeah, we have another question here on water quality. Has there been enough emphasis put on putting in buffer strips to maintain water quality? Okay,
I'll turn to you, Brendan, on that one first.
Yeah, so I suppose it's about the right solution in the right place. So where you're dealing with overland flow of nutrients, from either from a farmyard or where there's just a big, I suppose a lot of water converging at a part of the farm. If it's overland flows to rivers and so on, buffer strips have a huge part to play in terms of, and riparian zones in general, both in terms of boosting biodiversity, but also in terms of slowing that pathway filtering out some of those nutrients and reducing the rate at which they enter the watercourses. So yeah, like I suppose on a free draining soil then, the buffer strip, and particularly if you don't have an open watercourse, I mean, a buffer strip is not going to be of that much value in terms of, because it's more leaching then becomes the problem there. So the nutrient loading, using the legumes, cutting the chemical fertiliser, those kinds of things are the ways to try and solve that problem.
Yeah, but I think the question is we need to emphasise it more though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not talking about enough the buffer, and you were actually doing it on the farm here, Shane, aren't you?
Yeah.
You have buffer zones.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, like our fences, they're always out like a metre from the ditches anyway. And even if there wasn't an open drain there, and even we'll mow them out even 1.5 metres where we feel it's necessary. Any place like through the ASAP programme, we would have seen that there's a few risk areas where you have a little bit of a kind of a hollow, where it's more prone to maybe sediment runoff for phosphorus especially. So it's about knowing your farm, knowing your soil type, and making decisions based on that then.
Okay. We have loads of
we have
questions.
two more general on the general theme of reducing carbon footprint. How do you measure carbon footprint? What's the target? And then there's a question here from Fern. Is it economically, does it require a large initial investment to do it?
Okay, Brendan,
so
how do you measure it?
Yeah, so how we measure it at the moment, I suppose it's based on inventories, what feeds are coming into the farm, what milk is going out of the farm. We have emissions factors that are associated with all those things, and I suppose one interesting kind of new area of research is that actually the more we look at these inventories and so on, the more we realise that grazing systems are different. So even this year in Teagasc, there was a published study on nitrous oxide emissions from grassland are actually much lower than we thought previously, just because grazing is so much different. But it's about using those emissions factors. I suppose that's the way it's calculated for a farm. The second part of the question, Richie, was, sorry, I can't recall.
What was the second part?
Is there an investment, initial investment?
Sorry,
cost?
yeah. So in
Initial
terms of
investment, yeah.
No, actually, and when you look at the farms like Shane's, the top performing farms, they're more profitable and they have the lower footprint. So largely, reducing the footprint and more efficient and profitable farming go hand in hand, and that's really why I'm so confident that we can achieve these things, because it's in everyone's interest.
Efficient cow, efficient grass.
100%. So I think one of the biggest things is matching your stocking rate to your grass growing. That's the key, because if you're overstocked on farms, you're going to have a huge carbon footprint. Then you're going to be buying in a lot of feed. So I suppose we are conscious, and we grew the herd from 120 to 200 cows. I had a plan in place was to go up 20 cows a year. If we grow the grass, we keep them. If we couldn't, we wouldn't. Because if we do have to go importing feed from outside, it's obviously going to be a way higher carbon footprint. So that was something that we were always conscious of, is to have a plan in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Siobhan, I'm conscious of time now.
There's a question here on urea. Why are protected urea? Why is urea the only protected fertiliser on the market?
Brendan?
That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
Why isn't CAN protected?
Well, so I suppose the urea form, I suppose it's where all the research has been done, I suppose, and all the product bases. I suppose it's the form. Urea basically is not calcium ammonium nitrate losses. When you apply calcium ammonium nitrate to the soil, it's readily available, and there's quite fast nitrous oxide emissions from that immediately. Okay, so urea, I suppose, is a more stable form of N in the soils. So that's number one. But unfortunately, with urea, you'll have ammonia losses. There'll be volatilization losses with urea. So protected urea, I suppose, it's moving away from the nitrous oxide, the greenhouse gas emissions, number one. And secondly, then, because it's protected, you don't have those ammonia emissions associated with that. So that's probably largely the main that's the reason why we're using urea. Yeah, sorry.
We've spoken about protected urea already, but there's a question in here from Eugene. How can we encourage more farmers to use it? There is a resistance to using it still. How do we encourage more farmers to use it?
Okay, encouraging more farmers to use it, like the research is, there's loads of research, Brendan.
Yeah, it's compelling. It's absolutely compelling that, there is no difference in dry matter production. The benefits have been hugely proven for a large number of years now, So I suppose it's, for some farmers, they'll see Shane doing it and they'll follow his lead on that.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's the best way. I'd say anyone in Teagasc like Glanbia, I always say to you, you can put up a presentation, talk away about the farmers all day, but unless you actually see it working on farm, it has to be peer-to-peer. Farmers listen to other farmers, and if you see it working and it's doing what it's supposed to do, that's the best way. Through discussion groups, through these sort of things, I suppose, are important as well, because farmers definitely, they take advice from other farmers. If they see it working in practice, they'll more likely to adopt it.
11 future farms are all using it and are very confident, no problem. And they're measuring, I think the point here, they're measuring grass every week.
Yeah.
And they can see the grass growth with protected urea, and it works perfect. I think that's I'm conscious of time, Siobhan, but
Okay, and there's a lot of questions there that we're not going to get time to get to, but we did comment on the solar panels later on. Maybe it's a question to Shane, why did you go down to the route of putting in solar panels?
Yeah, well, I suppose firstly it's the right thing to do. Like, you know, it's renewable energy. Looking at the big picture, like I says, we're only a small example, but like, you know, it's doing the right thing, and I suppose it's going to save us 30 to 40% in our energy bills as well. Look, so we've installed them 3 weeks ago. The installation, everything's gone really well so far. They're up above us on the roof. So I suppose it'll be next year we'll really see the benefits. But I'll be able to record all the consumption, the usage on the app. I'll be able to see that, so I'll know exactly firsthand what the benefits are. I'll be able to see. I'll have the evidence there in front of me, so there'll be no guesswork. So it should pay itself back in 6 years. Like, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out, and it's a step in the right direction.
And Shane, you set up this initiative.
Yeah, so it's FarmGen that Shane has installed here on the farm, and I suppose we're constantly looking at what ways can we reduce the energy consumption and the carbon footprint of the farm, the emissions associated with it. And you know, farms are big users. Dairy farms are big users for milk cooling and for water heating, and then for milk and process as well. You've got a big demand for energy usage, and solar is a perfect fit there. We've got the roofs of the sheds available. There's always going to be a south-facing aspect on a farm, and install a small number of solar panels, not big investment, very good payback on it, real opportunity for farmers. It'll reduce the emissions from the farm. It's taking fossil fuels out of the system. It's doing our bit. It's not going to change the world in terms of carbon footprint, but it's just doing our bit. And so that service or that product is available through Glanbia. Just get in touch with a local advisor. There's 100% funding available through FundEquip, and there's grants available there as well.
Okay, I'm going to take one final question, Siobhan.
Yeah, and the final question is a quality of life question. So does Shane see a benefit in terms of the biodiversity and that on the farm, in terms of their quality of life here on the farm? So making the effort for the environment. So
you mean like, is it in our quality of life ourselves, like, is it?
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah. What should we do? Like, it's something like I'm passionate about, and I suppose I'm proud to farm. I feel like I'm a custodian of the land. I suppose, like, you want to pass the farm on to the next generation in a better place than you got it yourself. So obviously by looking after the environment, that's the number one thing. Like, so I get great satisfaction out of that, like, you know, and this is only the start of it. So hopefully when I decide to retire, whatever it is, 40, 50 years time, who knows how long.
I know, it's only 20 left.
I might be kicked out, might be pushed out the door, who knows. But it's all about taking pride in what you do, and every farmer will say that.
Okay, I think that's a fantastic way to finish, Shane. And really thanks to you and the family for having us here today. The amount of effort you've put in hosting this event, the information. I think I've spent 3 or 4, nearly a week here in total. And
I need a break from you, Richie, now for the next few days. I'll have to turn off the phone.
Okay, listen, you've been great. And to all the family, I know they're inside in the house watching, so it's really great, and thanks for having us here today. Thanks to Brendan Horan for all that information, to Shane McElroy, thanks to Glanbia, Teagasc and the European Milk Forum for organising today and being with us today. And thanks to you, the audience, for participating with loads of questions. This webinar is recorded, so you can go on to teagasc.ie and you'll see it under Let's Talk Dairy. And
I suppose there is more questions that can be answered on social media. If you want, if there's more there, I'm willing to answer any questions later on.
Okay, and that's an important point. So basically Shane is taking over the social media, Teagasc social, the Twitter account and the Instagram account until about 4 o'clock, just before milking.
Yeah, I thought you were milking this evening.
I know, well, we might leave that for a while. So Shane, you can interact with Shane for until about 4 o'clock this evening through the Teagasc Twitter and Instagram account, and we'll have loads of posts and ask loads of questions during the day. And again, thanks to everybody. And sorry, I should have mentioned at the start that Zoe Kavanagh couldn't be with us today, and she just sent her apologies. Zoe from NDC. Thanks everybody, and goodbye.
That's all from this week's Let's Talk Dairy webinar series, and don't forget to look out for more bonus episodes each week. I'll be back with our usual Dairy Edge interview on Monday, so do listen in then. I'm Emma Louise Coffey, and thanks for listening.